Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for Friday Digest. I'm Kim Coble, Executive Director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters. To start out with, it would be awesome if you could put your name in the chat as well as where you're from so we can make sure that we're tracking you and know who's joining us and whatnot. So thank you for joining us today. Um, our goal with Friday Digest is to make sure that you have the information, the inspiration, and the detailed status of what's going on so that you can be an informed and active advocate. During the General Assembly, there's lots of bills moving. We are tracking them regularly and we can fill in any blank that you need. So don't hesitate to reach out for sure. Um, the other thing we try to do on this is to really provide you the information that you're looking for. So after the webinar here, you'll receive a survey. That's the best way to convey what you would like us to be discussing, any questions you might have, really wondering how something works or the status of this, etc. So please complete that survey and let us know how we can be most helpful to you and what you need to become an informed and engaged advocate. Let's see. Today is the 10th Friday of the 2026 Maryland General Assembly, and it's the last Friday of the session before what is known as crossover. Crossover is Monday. And for anyone that isn't familiar with this, I'm going to give you a brief description and step back and explain what's going on with crossover. The Maryland General Assembly meets for 90 days. And during the first part of that uh, 90 days, they set a number of benchmark dates. They want to keep the legislation moving and they want to make sure that it can progress as quickly and as well as possible. Additionally, they want to make sure that the bills have an opportunity to be heard and to be discussed and to be voted on. So that's why there's the upfront investment of 69 days out of the 90 that are in the first part of crossover. The so the legislation is introduced, it's discussed, it's negotiated, it's amended in the original chamber that it started in. Then, after those 69 days, and the bill has been amended and voted out of the first chamber, it crosses over to the other chamber, thus the name. And in the remaining 21 days, the other chamber has to do exactly what was done in the first one at an accelerated pace. Often they don't have they'll take written testimony but not oral testimony from advocates, so the hearings are much more abbreviated. The other chamber has already considered amendments, so they look at those. So it's a much faster time frame, and some might even say it's a rapid fire pace for sure. So with crossover coming up on Monday, we thought it would be a great time to give you the status of Maryland LCV's priority bills. I am very honored to be joined today by Kristen Harbison, our political director, and Rebecca Rear, our director of climate policy and justice. I can't even begin to thank them for the work and effort and miles that they have put in this session. It's been a lot of work. It's an honor to be working side by side with them. Just to remind you, we had 4 priorities this session: the Cherish Our Community Acts, and that's a plural, the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, the Transportation Climate and Alignment Act, and then we had a catch-all under our rubric of Power Maryland Forward. And we didn't introduce any energy bills ourselves, but we knew there would be a lot, and there are a lot. And so we knew that we needed to leave space on our work plans to be sure we could respond to those energy bills. So we're going to go through each of those one by one and give you a sense of where we are with those. I'm going to start with the Cherish Our Communities Act. This is the bill that would allow Maryland Department of the Environment. There's 2 bills. One allows Maryland Department of the Environment, MDE, and the other bill allows the Maryland Public Service Commission, the PSC, to consider cumulative harms of existing pollution burdens before approving a new or renewal of a permit for polluting facilities. This would be a first for Maryland. These bills are driven by impacted front and fence line communities that have been so passionate, and I'm so grateful for their voices and work on this. Hundreds of hours of conversation, negotiations between community leaders, MDE. Ultimately, the Secretary of the Environment joined the sponsors at the sponsor panel during the hearing, and advocates at the table were there to support the legislation in front of the committee. So it was a really strong showing from community leaders. A lot of vocal support. We are very proud to say the governor publicly came out in support of the Cherish Acts, as did President Ferguson and Speaker Pena-Milnick. So the governor, the president, and the speaker all in support of the bills, which was great. Weeks and months of compromise and negotiation, and that stirred the pot for the industry lobbyists, and they came in force with a lot of proposed amendments that, for the impacted communities, it was just a bridge too far. Late Wednesday night, so not even 48 hours ago, the difficult decision was made to walk away from the negotiations on the Cherish bill. The Public Service Commission bill will not be advancing this year either. However, late last night, so this is hot off the press, there's an opportunity opened up to return to the table on the MDE bill. A lot of conversations and negotiations again. And so I'm very happy to say the bill is still in play. Literally, my phone is ringing crazy this morning with back and forth with legislators to see what, if anything, we can advance. It's the honor of working on a bill like this is that everybody agrees with the intent of the bill and the importance of protecting communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the cumulative burden of pollution. So really honored to work on that bill. We remain committed. Believe it's a good bill, that we can advance it, and that it truly serves the communities. So we're grateful for our sponsors, Senator Brooks, Delegate Baylor, Delegate Johnson, and we are really hopeful that we'll be able to report soon that at least it's making some progress. Right now, this moment, it's still being discussed. So that is the update on that. Let me turn to our next priority bill, the Transportation and Climate Alignment Act. And I'm going to turn this over to Kristen Harbison, who has been working on it. And yeah, so Kristen, all you.
Yeah, thanks. So there is some bright news on the transportation front, and just as a reminder, because we haven't talked about this on this webinar for several weeks, the Transportation Climate Alignment Act requires the Department of Transportation to do an assessment of the additional pollution load from increased vehicle traffic in projects that cost more than $100 million. And that to recommend mitigation solutions that reflect the needs of the communities impacted by the pollution. This bill is sponsored by Delegate Mark Edelson in the House and Senator Shelley Heddleman in the Senate, and is supported by dozens of organizations and communities, including the Maryland Department of Transportation, who helped shape the legislation. And like Cherish, this bill is a community priority this year as well, environmental community priority as well. So the bill passed the House late last week and will be taken up by the Senate after crossover. This is the third year that this bill has passed the House, so we're hoping that the work of the coalition and pressure from constituents across Maryland will lead to a successful outcome in the Senate as well. So that's what we got for that. It's a good news, quick update.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate the good news, and stay tuned with us because we may need to do some grassroots outreach on this one and really push it through. So more to come on that one as well. All right, I'd like to have Rebecca join us. We will be talking about the The last two priorities we have is the Strategic Energy Investment Fund and our energy package, Power Maryland Forward. These two items have gotten compressed into one bill, so a very big bill. And so I would like Rebecca to kind of describe what we've got there, especially with regard to the energy aspects. Rebecca?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. I'll try to give the overview here on this energy bill. Um, to ground us in the conversation, I just want to note that since the time she was sworn in as the new speaker in December, Speaker Pena Melnick has talked about the importance of addressing energy prices and electricity bills, and the challenge and really challenging the members of the House to provide relief to ratepayers in Maryland. And so we have HB 1532. That was originally introduced as the Speaker's Bill continuing the Next Generation Energy Act. It is now 1532, the Utility Relief Act. So it was renamed and a law was added to it. So now we have one big energy bill in the House. So it's really an answer to that call to action from the Speaker on addressing energy affordability. The House Energy Subcommittee, under the leadership of Environment and Transportation Committee Chair Mark Corman and Subcommittee Chair David Fraser Hidalgo, looked at all the bills that were being proposed. Like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot that had aspects that reduced energy cost or increased efficiency, transparency, utility accountability, and put them together in one in HB 1532. So I'm going to run through briefly, I hope, some top lines, including the original bill numbers where these concepts were introduced. So first, on utility accountability, HB 1 and part of HB 897, which was the governor's bill, were included in HB 1532. Those cap the amount ratepayers pay for utility salaries and also require utilities to join PJM, our regional grid operator. And that way utilities can't charge us an adder for doing it voluntarily. So those are two direct impacts to our bills. They also folded in HB 540, which included some more transparency from the utilities on our bills. And one more thing, utilities won't be able to use forecasting years for their multi-year rate making. So that's in front of the Public Service Commission, which it's a little technical, but it's good for our bottom line as ratepayers. So next, that was utility accountability in a nutshell, I think. Regarding getting the most out of the grid we have. So we have this grid, we share it with a bunch of states. If you go back in the library of conservation conversations over the summer, you can learn more about PJM. But we have this grid, and there are great provisions in the bill on advanced transmission technologies. So ATTs from HB 40 and HB 897. So it really looks at instead of first choice building a new transmission line, we have some technologies that we could use on our existing grid to get more out of these lines that we have. And it puts that procedure in place. And it also includes HB 928, which closes a loophole for underground transmission lines. So some really good transmission initiatives in HB 1532. Next item, solar. There are provisions about streamlining permitting for rooftop solar from original bill HB 1104. There's an ACP reverse auction in the bill, and the bill creates a pathway for the next steps on net energy metering, which is good. We're getting up to our 3 gigawatt cap, and so what's next for the program? The bill has a path for that, and it folds in part of the Affordable Solar Act. It folds in the piece on plug-in solar, which is pretty cool and a wonky subject for another day. But finally, on data centers, there is a pathway in the bill for a large load registry to try to prevent some of the what's been come to known as phantom load. So, we share this grid with a bunch of states. A data center might say like, oh, that place looks good in Pennsylvania. That place looks good in Ohio, and maybe here in Maryland too. And the way PJM receives that data, sometimes it means it could be up to 3 times the load we actually are going to get because the data center is only going to build in that one place. So phantom load is a really big deal, and addressing it there starts to get addressed in this bill. Some demand response provisions, which we saw in HB 940 originally, And it reduces the definition of that large load tariff passed last year from 100 megawatts, so like really, really, really big data centers, to 25 megawatts, which is like big data centers or large load users. So that's really good because we're going to get that tariff schedule for the 25 megawatt facilities. So and that idea was a part of the speaker's original plan as well. So rather than have all these as separate bills, legislators looked at all these. They had hearings. They were had people testify on them, and they've now been reconstructed in a way that create one single plan in the House's attempt to provide annual savings for ratepayers.
Thank you. Yeah, take a breath in, breath out. There's a lot in there, and is it fair to say that generally speaking, it's a good bill for ratepayers? It's a good bill for the environment. It's not perfect because no bill is perfect, but generally pretty good, right?
Yes.
And then can you describe a little bit about the intersection of that bill and Maryland LCV's Power Maryland Forward initiative?
Yep. Yes. So grateful for this question because we had put forward this Power Maryland Forward framework as our fourth priority this year. And that looked at, we were looking through that framework, that campaign, really launching a campaign to support bills that increase energy affordability. So same goals as the General Assembly through the deployment of solar and storage, making the most out of the grid we have, protecting against more fossil fuels, and addressing unchecked utility profits was the framing we sort of built Power Maryland Forward on. And actually, all 6 of the bills we ended up naming as part of that framework have been wholly or partially adopted into HB 1532.
Okay. So they took components from these different bills, you're saying, and there are things that didn't get in the bill that we might want to amend in or that we might want to have change. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So, you asked me before, generally, is it good? Yes. But in a big bill as this one, are there things we might want to work on? Also, yes. The biggest concern that was raised initially and still we have our eye on is the changes to the state's energy efficiency program, or Empower. And if you missed it, I do encourage folks to go back and watch the episode we did on Empower about 2 weeks ago on Friday Digest, and you can find all of them on Maryland LCV's YouTube channel. So you can learn more about the Empower program and why it's so important and why we're so focused on that provision in what is a very large piece of legislation. As it did pass the House, so this bill, HB 1532, has passed the House and it is now in the Senate. And so it's not done. And we're hearing just this morning from a press conference, actually, that I just read the notes on, so I think I can accurately recount here, but that the Senate is looking at some changes. So there's to 1532 as the chambers look to see if their vision is, but with the same goal of energy affordability. So, but as it passed the House, the language in HB 1532 on Empower reduces actually the goal for the next 3 years. It pauses the goal, reduces and then pauses it, and then has a ramp up back to where we're supposed to be on that program and its goals. Something that's slightly more concerning that they did to the Empower program is allowing community solar projects to count towards those goals, which I think the result of that may pit sort of 2 programs against each other, which is one focused on generation, so community solar, and one on efficiency, both of which have incredible opportunity for ratepayer savings, but are distinct in the way that they operate. The House did come in, thanks to everyone on this call for signing the Empower Action Alert and being active, and we're seeing the direct results of your advocacy, because there was a cap, a 20% cap on how much that solar can actually count towards the goals. So that is a positive movement in what we had identified as a pretty big flag.
Awesome. It is a big bill. 104 pages?
Yeah,
Something like
that's
that.
as it came out of the House. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that is in that big bill has to do with the Strategic Energy Investment Fund and how the that money is going to be allocated. So, Kristen, can you do a drive-by on that?
Sure. And yes, and again, we've talked about different pieces of the Strategic Energy Investment Fund on a couple different Friday Digests. One at the very beginning of the session, we talked a little bit about alternative compliance payments and why they're important last week. And yes, so among our priorities this year was defending the environmental budgets for the current fiscal year and also ensuring that the Strategic Energy Investment Fund is used for the intended purposes. What HB 5032 does is it guarantees funding for key programs from the dividends of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program, or RGGI, and it also sets guardrails to ensure that SEEF dollars are spent for SEEF programs, which we've started call it just saying SEEF for SEEF things. The bill also does address some of the alternative compliance payments funds as well as the RGGI funds, which some of you may remember again from the conversation last week, and which Rebecca alluded to in talking about the Power Maryland Forward program agenda. It creates a program called reverse auctions that has been promoted as an efficient and creative way to get money out the door to rapidly develop new solar projects. And while I'm talking about, actually, there's late breaking news and related news this morning that we can share. While HB 1532 deals with future years, the Appropriations Committee rolled out their proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. The next year's budget that includes an additional $100 million above and beyond from what the governor proposed to support some important priorities. Two that I'd like to highlight that we're really excited about is nearly $73 million more than $70 million to help families transition their homes off of gas and onto electric heat pumps. Additionally, almost $24 million for the Maryland Clean Energy Center, which makes low and no interest loans that leverage private equity to rapidly advance new and renewable energy projects. So this is a really important step, and excited to be able to share this news here.
Yeah, things are happening quickly, so very
So
exciting.
fast.
Um, so thank you both, Rebecca, Kristen, for your input and for tracking all the details on this big bill. Let me ask you a couple questions that have come in, and yeah, we're going to come in at this from a bunch of different things, a bunch of different ways. How can our listeners, our members, our advocates be most effective on crossover and beyond? You said, we made the point that things move really fast. So, what is the best thing that they can be doing?
I mean, other than subscribe to our listserv and make sure that you're on our mailing list so we can tell you what's happening as soon as it happens, because um, we can't do this work without you. Rebecca and Kim and I can go in the halls and talk to legislators, but the people they really need to hear from you is you. And so we'll tell you through our social media, we'll tell you through our listserv about what has to happen and what the message is and who needs to hear about it and when. So yeah, so make sure that you're paying attention to your email and paying attention to social media, and so we can tell you what we need to do when we need to do it. And I'm sure that again, we can't do this without you. So if you want to throw us a little bit of help support our efforts, of course we'd be grateful.
Yeah, I think knowing which one. So, for example, we've had a great couple questions in the chat about the Utility Relief Act. It has already passed the House. So that's why it's really important as we do advocacy on that to do it in the Senate, right? Like knowing sort of where to weigh in. And I would say, don't forget the thank yous.
Yes.
Legislators are working really hard right now. They do all 90 days, they do all year round, but right now is crunch time for a lot of folks, and a thank you for something they've done well, or something you're really seeing make change goes a long way, and might recharge their battery a bit, and to keep going, for some more things we might need to. So don't forget your thank yous this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just announced literally this additional money for these important programs was just announced by legislators this morning. We'd love it if you just said, "Hey, thanks, hey, thank you, House of Delegates, for this supporting these important programs. That's really, we really appreciate you. That means a lot.
Yeah. And I want to thank the two of you for everything as well. One more question from that we got in from the audience that I think is important to address, and then I'm going to flip gears for the last 5 minutes. The CEF dollars. So, Kristen, it was well advertised when it first came out in the governor's budget that some of the money had been removed from CEF and gone to the general fund. Is
Right.
that still the case? And if so, how do we feel about that?
Well, I'd say it's complicated, like many things. To the best of our, I mean, we're still working through the budget documents, which are even longer and more complicated than House Bill 1532, which is 104 pages. So we're still trying to piece through exactly what happened. But yes, they have taken money, as far as we know, for general fund relief. That being said, what 1532 does is it says, this is it. CEF for CEF things. You did it last year, you're doing it this year. We are setting guardrails that can't happen again. And so, and there is a lot of money. Again, we're seeing a lot of support from the General Assembly and the governor's office to make sure that we're really keeping our robust our commitment to our climate programs by spending money that needs to be spent. It's never going to be enough
Great.
money, but it's important. So I think we
Awesome.
don't love that they're taking the money for the general fund, but we know that it's moving in the right direction.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate all the work and knowledge and expertise. And to those folks that are on, I also want to bring up to you that as crossover day approaches, Maryland LCV has a very unique opportunity to, we have a matching donor for $25,000. So for all the money we raise up to 25,000, they will match it dollar for dollar. This is a unique opportunity for us, and we're really hoping that you can make any level of contribution that we would appreciate it. Making a gift to Maryland LCV today, you'll directly power our policy advocacy, our lobbying efforts, and as we enter the critical final works of this legislative session, we can use your support. As I said, it's really timely. We need your financial support. And so we can continue to do this work and keep you informed and activate. So please support our work. It makes a difference, and it does help so much. Now is a great time to make the donations. I believe there's links. Yep, there's links in the chat, and you can always go to our website and there'll be links there. So um, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We will be back next week with another edition of Friday Digest. In the meantime, please sign up for our emails, follow us on the social media, and we hope that you have a great weekend. We will be working hard over the weekend and keep you informed on everything. Don't forget the survey, and thank you all so much for joining us.